Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome into a new episode of Capitol View, a webcast brought to you by the Daily Journal and djournal.com. Coming to you every Monday around 2 o'clock here, streaming live at djournal.com. And if you missed this or just going to want to come back and watch it again, come back to djournal.com. We'll have it here for you. We'll have it up for a while. I'm Brad Locke, your host, joined by Bobby Harrison, as always, our Capitol Bureau Chief down in Jackson. We had a few technical difficulties last week, you may have noticed. Hopefully we won't run into those this week. It could happen, but we're going to try to get through it without that happening. Bobby, how you doing?
All right, Brad, how you doing? Got my fingers crossed.
Yeah, me too, Bobby. Knock on wood. Well, Bobby, they had the big old Neshoba County Fair last week down there in Neshoba County, and that's a big event every year for various reasons. One of the reasons being you got a lot of political speakers rolling through there. Sometimes it's not really anything to campaign about necessarily this year like we had last year, but still plenty to talk about, Bobby. And we had some of your regulars, the governor, the lieutenant governor, House Speaker, Roger Wicker showed up as well, Delbert Hoseman, Lynn Fitch.
All the statewide officers, except for Auditor Stacy Picker was the only one who had conflict that wasn't not there.
Right. So anyway, let's just kind of hit some highlights, Bobby. Let's start with Governor Bryant, the story you had. He thinks that Mississippi's not getting the credit it deserves. Too much, not enough positive Mississippi being spoken, Bobby, I guess.
That was kind of one of the themes of the governor's speech. You know, a lot's been written about the budget cuts that have occurred this year to slow down in revenue collections, actually a decline in revenue collections, and the jobs are Mississippi still lagging the rest of the country in terms of jobs growth. But the governor said that those things were negative things, that the state was doing well. He points to some major economic development projects that are online, such as the Yokohama Tire Plant just opened, I believe, in the past year up in West Point, and the Continental Tire Company down in Hinds County is going to open in the coming years. He he thinks that there's too much negativity. He also is upset that with the nature of reporting on the House bill that was signed into law by him that provides state officials authority not to issue marriage license to same-sex couples if they have a religious objection. Of course, that law was overturned by a federal court.
Right.
And he believes that there's been too much negative publicity surrounding that law. So he was trying to highlight what he believes are the positive events occurring in Mississippi.
And also, Bobby, when he was talking, as you described in your story, he kind of was not just standing behind the lectern or the podium, whatever you want to call it. He was kind of wandering around. Kind of reminds me of my dad's a preacher, and he's been known to not stay in the pulpit. He'll just kind of wander all over the stage there while he preaches. So, but he seemed relaxed, I guess, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's been doing that for a while. He was the only one that did it there. Everybody else used the lectern. I mean, I always nothing against your dad, but I always thought that pulpit was there for a reason. But more and more, my preacher doesn't use it either. But I always just wondering, I thought God put that pulpit in the church for a reason, but I guess that was wrong.
Yeah, it's just there to keep them centered, Bobby. They always come back to it. You mentioned the HB 1523, the same-sex marriage law. That was something that when Jim Hood spoke, he criticized some of the Republican leadership for focusing too much on issues like that and on tax cuts, not enough on helping fund education, for example. And Tate Reeves certainly and Tate Reeves certainly had some things to say. And it's kind of a possible preview of the 2019 governor's race.
Yeah, the Lieutenant Governor Reeves retorted to Attorney General Hood. Of course, Hood's the only statewide elected Democrat, so he's often a target in these type of events. But it's looking more and more like he's going to be running for governor in 2019, and of course everyone's known for years now that the lieutenant governor was going to run for governor in 2019. So that could be a precursor to what we have coming. Reeves hit he came back from the Philadelphia, from the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia to attend that event there in Philadelphia, Mississippi at the Neshoba County Fair. Of course, Hood pointed out he wasn't at the Democratic Convention. He was actually at this Houston solar car competition before he got back to the Neshoba County Fair. but they went. Reeves especially went at the Attorney General. Hood's been careful not to actually. I mean, he's kind of walking a tightrope. He's actually not criticizing what the law does, but what he's focused on is that it's been overturned by the courts. If you continue to try to fight it in the courts at this point, he believes you're just throwing good money after bad or bad money after good, whichever the right way. That it costs the state a lot of money to defend these types of lawsuits, and oftentimes they end in the state losing and having to pay the attorneys for the other side.
Right.
So that was kind of the gist of his argument against continuing to try to defend 1523. Of course, the governor, lieutenant governor, and the other Republicans who spoke last week at the fair, they want to go whole hog to continue to try to defend the law. So and it is going to the defense is going to continue to. The governor has some national attorneys who said they're doing a pro bono to take on the defense at this point. But as Hood points out, if the state ultimately loses, then more than likely they got to pay the attorneys on the other side. So that's going to cost, he said, estimated as much as $1 million to pay those attorneys.
Right. Well, like you said, there has been some negative publicity regarding that. But hey, Phil Bryant wants some positive news, and you put this in your story, Bobby. Delbert Hosemann, Secretary of State, talked about the government, the voter ID law that recently went into effect, and apparently is hadn't unlike in some other states, Bobby. It seems like that one's so far, at least according to Hosemann's, gone off without a hitch.
Yeah, and there has been no lawsuits. I mean, there's anecdotal evidence of during been in effect for a couple of years, anecdotal evidence of people having trouble voting. But what Mississippi was careful in passing a law to put in place safeguards to ensure that people could get an ID if they didn't have one, a government issued photo ID at no cost. And in other states like Texas, there was some costs associated with getting those government issued photo IDs, and that's one of the primary reasons federal courts have overturned laws in Texas and some other states, whereas Mississippi, there's no cost if you want to go in and get that ID to vote. So that's a key difference.
One issue that we thought might be spoken to during this Neshoba County Fair last week, Bobby, is the state flag issue. Of course, that's been an issue for a while now. A lot of people want to see the flag changed, taken down in front of city halls. Certainly, it's been an issue here in Tupelo. That didn't really come up, Bobby, and with it not really being a campaign season, aside from Tate Reeves campaigning for governor in 2019, kind of thought that might make an appearance. But I guess it's not something that the Republican leaders are really eager to talk about. I mean, if it comes up, fine, but it looks like they're just content to let that one sit for now.
Well, but it kind of splits the Republicans to a certain extent. Philip Gunn, the House Speaker, he didn't talk about it at the fair, but he's come out in favor of changing the flag. Phil Bryant has said repeatedly that he'd like to see a statewide referendum to let the voters speak to whether to change the flag, which, of course, the reason they're talking about changing it is it includes the Confederate battle emblem as a key part of the design. And, Brian has come out saying that he would like to see a vote on whether the people want to keep it or change it. But it was not an issue that was addressed, talked about at the fair. But as I pointed out in my story, there were a lot of state flags being flown at the fair. So you saw it quite often.
Phil Bryant was asked about it. And like you said, he basically reiterated his position that a referendum would be good, and he does seem to sense, as he said, a changing dynamic regarding the flag. I mean, it almost seems like.
I thought that was an interesting point he said, because in the past he's always been pretty adamant that there was a statewide referendum in 2000. Help me out, Brad. 2001, and it was
2001.
Overwhelmingly wanted to keep up the old flag, but the governor conceded that there may be some change dynamics going on. Of course, a few weeks ago, the Southern Baptist Convention passed a resolution in St. Louis and supported changing the flag. Yeah. And so there seems to be some momentum right now going in that direction. Whether it's enough to actually change the hearts and minds of the average Mississippian is yet to be determined.
All right. Well, good stuff as always, Bobby. I hope you enjoyed yourself down there in the rain and the muck. Actually, it wasn't that hot down there, was it, though?
Not as hot as it's been in the past, but you're correct that it was kind of muddy, and it was poor Deborah Hoseman, the Secretary of State, when he was speaking. You could barely hear his speech over the rain pelting down on the tin roof pavilion. It was loud underneath that pavilion, but overall it was a lot cooler than it has been at other years.
All right. Well, good stuff. And thank you all for tuning in to Capitol View. Again, coming to you every Monday around 2 p.m. And if you missed any of this or just want to watch the replay, just check it out at djournal.com. Follow Bobby on Twitter at BobbyHarrison9. You can find me on Twitter as well at Brad Locke. And we'll be back next Monday, I reckon. We'll have plenty to talk about. Be sure to check out all the news and sports and entertainment you need to keep up with in the Daily Journal or at djournal.com. Follow the Journal on Twitter at djournal now. See y'all next week. Until then, have a good one.